Welcome to Sky Team's People First with Morag Barrett.
Welcome to this week's episode of People First. And this week, my guest is the award-winning author, Julie Winkle Giulioni. And she is the champion for workplace growth and development and helps executives and leaders optimize talent and potential within their organizations, which is all the fancy way of saying that she helps us all to grow our careers together. She is one of Inc. magazine's top 100 speakers and the authors of Promotions Are So Yesterday, Redefine Career Development, Help Employees Thrive, and co-author of the international bestseller, which we will be talking about today, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, Career Conversations Organizations Need and Employees Still Want, which has now been translated into 7 languages. And I have here an advanced copy of the 3rd edition. Julie is a regular columnist for the Training Industry magazine and Smart Brief and contributes articles on leadership, career development, and workplace trends to numerous publications, including Fast Company and The Economist. You can keep up with Julie through her blog and LinkedIn. More information to come, but check out the show notes below. So, Julie, welcome to People First.
Thank you so much.
I am so looking forward to this conversation. I sat down and started to read Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And I wish I had this as a resource when I was in my corporate career. But it was interesting to me that a lot of the tips and tools apply now, even as an entrepreneur, with the conversations I'm having with my teammates and colleagues. But more on that to come. As with every episode, I start with the burning question of the century. When you were a wee girl, Julie, and the teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" What was your answer?
I had 2 aspirations as a child. I wanted to be a medical doctor. I just thought healing people would be the coolest thing ever. And if that didn't work out, I wanted to be an elevator operator because back in the olden days, you had to, it wasn't just hitting a button. There was a full-time employee whose job it was to close the raking door and then to drive the elevator up and down. And one summer, I got to learn how to do that. And I thought that was right up there with medical doctor.
I love that. I wanted to be a long distance truck driver because I thought I'd get to see the world. And I remember at one point my sons wanted to be, well, they said box movers, but they decided pizza delivery because they got to move boxes, but then they would get the pizzas too. And I just love that sort of creative, I don't know, just dreams that we have. Yeah. So from elevator operator, what was the pivot then that made your career move to where you are today?
Well, I don't know how realistic elevator operation was, given that, and your book speaks
it has
to
its ups and downs.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Did you like that? Yeah.
So, there probably wasn't going to be much of a future in that once buildings figured out how to do it on a self-service basis. But I think that the underlying idea of needing to pivot and change and adjust and update based upon changing conditions is pretty central to the work that I do in the career development space, because given how things are changing and morphing and evolving so quickly, many of the jobs that feel really compelling, more so than an elevator operator today, tomorrow could be off our radar screens, and there's something else that needs to be doing. And so that kind of flexibility and the ability to follow where opportunity lies, I think, may be central to my success and my thinking about this field.
It's funny because I can recall one of the most frustrating questions I was asked often in my early career was, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Which was code for what job title do you think you would have? And of course, as you've just touched on there, many of the job titles we have now didn't exist when my career was just starting out, let alone 5 years ago. And who knows what's going to be available in the years to come. And you make that point in the book, which is more or less about what you want to be and more about what you want to do and the skill set. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you know, the where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years to me feels like the corporate equivalent of what do you want to be when you grow up? You know,
Hmm.
pushing people toward titles, toward roles, toward these very specific boxes on an org chart that, as you said, may not be there. But it also sets up this dynamic of scarcity and the tendency for managers to be in a position where they have to say no. Because if I want to be the vice president of XYZ, there's only so many of those. And they may not be ready when I'm ready. I might not be ready when the opening is ready. And so it sets up this dynamic where we end up feeling frustrated as individuals and stressed out as managers who have to have conversations and perhaps disappoint people and not meet expectations. And so the shift from what do you want to be to what kind of work do you want to be doing? What kinds of problems do you want to solve? You know, what kinds of challenges are you angling for? What kinds of customers, technology do you want to work with? All of that opens a conversation up in a way and lays something out on the table that managers can start to say yes to. Because when we get
Hmm.
creative and we hear what people want to do, we can frequently introduce into the envelope of someone's current role those experiences and opportunities that keep them engaged and growing, perhaps on the road to, some other role or, what they want to be as well.
Well, you open the book with a few of the myths associated with career development and career development conversations. And I think you just touched on one there, which is yeah, but what if I can't meet their expectations? So, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. No. So, what's your answer to that?
Yeah, the funny thing is, as managers and leaders, we frequently go into the conversation thinking everybody wants the promotion, the salary increase, the corner office, things that we don't have a lot of. But the truth is, when we get under that and really start having authentic conversations, we discover that people are interested in so much more. When we originally wrote our first edition, we did a survey and we asked employees, what do you want more than anything else out of a career conversation with your boss? The number one theme was creative ways to use my skills and talents. Now, what
Oh.
manager can't say yes to that? What manager wouldn't benefit? What organization wouldn't thrive if we were using skills and talents in new and different ways? So the challenge for managers is to work past that myth, because and the problem is these myths tend to immobilize us. Work past the myth, start having the conversation, and folks are going to be really surprised by what bubbles up.
The other one that's stuck with me was the employee owns their career, which was actually also not even code for, as explicit for. So we as an organization are washing our hands of it. You are responsible for your own career development. And again, a little bit of me just dies on the inside every time I hear that because it's abdicating co-responsibility. So how do we make sure that both parties are showing up to this conversation as prepared as they can be?
Yeah, it's really a relationship, isn't it? It's not an either or. Employees have to own their development. I mean, nobody else can own it for you, but they can't do it alone. They need the support, the encouragement of those managers and the systems that support them from an organizational standpoint. So it becomes a little bit, I look at it as a bit of a dance. Employees have their steps, but a manager needs to be in there too, doing the facilitation and the enablement and the networking and offering the resources that are necessary. So the key is for both to recognize that they've got a stake in this and a responsibility associated with it, and to come to conversations, both, the formal ones that might happen a couple times a year, but also to have, the ongoing conversations be really rich with insight about what's possible.
Ongoing conversations? How
Yeah.
often should I be talking and thinking about my career then?
So the way we really look at career development, it is, and this is right up your alley, my friend, it is a relationship. And it's a relationship that plays out through conversation. So frequently managers, leaders, they think, okay, I have that one big, hour and a half conversation and we plot out everything the employee is going to do all year long. And then back to what you were saying, I'm done for now. And we know that one and done approach doesn't work. What works and what actually works better, given the cadence of business and how busy managers and employees for that matter are, is an ongoing thread of dialogue. When managers start to look at the interactions they're already having with people, they're going to be able to see that there are wonderful opportunities to, just with some curiosity and a great question, shift that conversation you're already having, not an extra one, not extra time that you have to add to your agenda. Shift the time that you're already spending with people to bring some attention to development, to bring that out. And so, again, with some curiosity, a good question, we can mine the interactions that are already there, get some development wrung out of that. And then what we're doing is layering these small pieces of insight and ideas and momentum, one on the other, to create more of an authentic approach and an embedded organic approach to career development.
What I like about that is, again, it's not about doing more. It's doing what we are already doing, just a more laser-like and thoughtful and intentional way. So I've already mentioned that we're talking about Julie Winkle Giulioni's book, What Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, which is now on its third edition. So in this third edition, what are readers going to uncover? What new nuggets are you including?
That's such a great question, because when the publisher first came to us and said, hey, it's time to update it, my first thought was, well, it's kind of evergreen content. Does it need to be updated? And upon reading it, what I recognized was, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's good evergreen content. But the context that this has to happen in today has changed dramatically. A few things have happened over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so context, is everything. And so that's really what we've leaned into with this edition, to really look at, the current issues that we have around psychological safety. We've got a whole new chapter around developing at a distance, because we've got a critical mass now of employees who are remote or hybrid. And attending to the growth needs of that population is different. And it requires, back to something you were just talking about, intentionality, like, we've not seen in the past. We've increased the number of questions, because we know that's really the currency of great career conversations. And so we've got over 100 questions in this edition. We've addressed the issue of talent hoarding, because a lot of times managers, leaders, they bring this scarcity mentality to talent.
Mm-hmm.
People, and if I develop them, I get to keep them. And of course, the harder you squeeze, the more they want to get the heck out of Dodge. And so, how do we think about talent as more of an enterprise-wide resource, and growth as something that's a responsibility and a privilege that leaders have? And then finally, one other thing that we dug into a bit in this edition was, especially in a world of AI where there's so much technology to help us, we want to also understand and honor the role of HI, human interaction. It really trumps the technology any day. People are looking for a human connection, that sense of investment and respect and connection and belonging. And so we talk about the importance of that and how to bring that humanity to the fore.
I love that you touch on that, because yes, with automation and AI, we've all been at the receiving end of being ghosted by recruitment processes or applications where you never hear whether or not your application was received. And there's that element of doubt and all the psychological impact that has. But what you're saying is that the relationships still matter. So we do still, whether we're working in an office, co-located, or working at time and distance, still need to invest in that human interface, as you've described it, and nurture those relationships, because that differentiates and can help make a difference as we're moving up the ladder or across the ladder. Which actually brings me to another question. Is the ladder dead?
Well, that is a very good question. The ladder is definitely rickety in many
Mhm.
organizations, right? And it has been for a while. I mean, and even the idea of a ladder that suggests an even flow of talent, perhaps.
Mhm.
Oh, we know it's like this. And the air gets, thinner and thinner toward the top. The opportunities are fewer and fewer. So I don't think the ladder is dead, despite, my other book is titled Promotions Are So Yesterday. And, promotions are so today. There's going to be so tomorrow. They're part of the organizational structure, the organizational psyche. But they're just one of many ways people can grow. And, there are only so many opportunities up, a lot more opportunities this way. But where the opportunities are nearly infinite is right within the role you occupy. And when we become really intentional about that, when we get clear on what our interests are, how we want to grow, there are lots of ways that we can invite those experiences into the envelope of that current role in a way that serve us and our development needs and serve the organization as well.
All right. So I have two questions. Let's start with the manager, the people manager. So they're listening to this episode. How do they find out whether or not the career development planning and conversations they're having right now, how do they find out how they're doing and what's one thing they can do to up their game?
Probably the most powerful way to assess how you're doing is to ask the people around you and invite feedback. So going to employees and saying, I really want to offer the experience of development. And I'm learning about this stuff too. So tell me, what am I doing well? How am I making you feel valued? How am I supporting you to grow? And what am I not doing so well? What else do you need from me? Or what differently can I do to better support your efforts? And it is amazing how generous people will be with the information that will help the leader to grow and of course help them then in return to grow as well. So that's probably the first step that I'd be inclined to take just to get, kind of a baseline. So I know as a leader, what do I want to keep doing? What do I need to change? What do I need to stop? And then responding accordingly, based upon the feedback that you get is key. One of the things that we hear from most employees, very few people complain about the quality of the development they're getting.
Mhm.
Mostly it's the absence of it.
Okay.
Simply increasing the number of times you're talking to people, asking them, what are you learning? What are you interested in learning? Where are you succeeding? Where are the struggles? Just having those conversations. And again, it doesn't have to be a big major sit down. It could be 5 minutes at the beginning of your, one-on-ones, just making that a ritual. Let's talk about your growth. Where do things stand? Or passing people in the hallway, finding ways to infuse more of a development focus into those conversations. Just increasing the number of times that we're talking about this has a profound impact on people. It really leaves them feeling respected and valued and invested in.
So, okay, let's put ourselves now in the shoes or the slippers or the socked feet of somebody who's working at a time and distance away from their manager. And again, listening to this conversation, what advice do you have for them in perhaps raising this topic for the first time and going into that first conversation with some preparation?
Yeah, and that's really key, Mark. I think the preparation, the thoughtfulness, the being deliberate, the being intentional is what it's all about, especially when you're at a distance. You've got to
Mhm.
bring that much more intentionality to it. So for someone who's remote or hybrid, who's not getting the quality or the quantity of development that they're looking for, the key is to come to the manager with a non-threatening approach, an invitation to engage. So to say, if I find myself at a distance and I don't want that to get in the way of my ability to contribute to our team, to our organization. I want to make sure that I'm continuing to grow and develop. And at a distance, it's a little harder, Mr. or Ms. Boss. So I wonder, could we, at the beginning of each of our one-on-ones, just spend a couple of minutes talking about development, just so it stays top of mind for me? Or bringing to the boss, I'm really interested in learning more about finance. I want to build my business, acumen. Is there any chance that you might need help as you start to build next year's budget? Could I shadow you,
Mhm.
do some of the grunt work, and just kind of through osmosis get that? Bringing some of those ideas to the table takes the weight off the manager's shoulders. And an idea that's a win-win like that. I mean, what manager is not going to say, absolutely, I could use the help?
Okay, love it. So as we come to the end of our time together, what's the one thing that you hope listeners to People First take away from our conversation?
I sure hope that leaders and managers walk away with the understanding that career development doesn't have to be hard or heavy or onerous. It doesn't have to be long, big, planned out meetings. It can be really spontaneous and organic and embedded in the workflow when we rethink how development operates, when we realize that it really fundamentally is how we show up in the relationship that we have with our folks. And when we bring that kind of development orientation and relationship, then everything we do together is infused with a sense of growth, or at least the opportunity for it.
Love it. And at the beginning, I mentioned both your blog and website. So where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
The website is probably the best repository of my stuff. It's juliewinklegiulioni.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, probably the only Julie Winkle Giulioni there.
Love it. Well, thank you very much for being my guest this week, Julie. I've really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to future opportunities.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Me too.
Thank you so much for joining Morag today. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. If you learned something worth sharing, share it. Cultivate your relationships today when you don't need anything before you need something. Be sure to follow Sky Team and Morag on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you have any ideas about topics we should tackle, interviews we should do, or if you yourself would like to be on the show, drop us a line at info@skyteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again for joining us today, and remember, business is personal and relationships matter. We are your allies.